Hey, greetings from Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. I am Big Chill, Jason Grusky of the Punxsutawney Groundhog Club. With me is AJ Dereume. He's Punxsutawney Phil's one and only handler. And we're here. It's Wednesday, January 29th. And we decided, because it's on a Sunday morning this year, that we would record a little piece so we could get it out to the schools and students and teachers worldwide so you can have a feel for what it's like here in Punxsutawney, PA.
So yeah, hello to you guys. We normally do these things in person, but to reach this many schools, in person in the weeks leading up to Groundhog Day would be pretty difficult. We all have day jobs. Jason's actually a teacher at our local high school, and I own a roofing company. So we do that throughout the day, but mostly we just do Groundhog stuff, is what everyone else we work with would tell you. So let's get into it. This is we like to go around. We have one job as members of the Groundhog Club Inner Circle, and that is to perpetuate the legend of Punxsutawney Phil. So that's what we're here to do for you guys today. Obviously, in Punxsutawney, Phil is above all else. He's so important to us, and we're here to hopefully instill that in you. So you'll leave this presentation recognizing Phil as the only true weather prognosticating groundhog, the seer of seers.
He has a lot of nicknames: Seer of Seers,
Yeah.
Prognosticator of all prognosticators,
Yep.
the only true weather predicting groundhog,
In the world.
King of the animal kingdom.
King of the animal kingdom, as far as we know. That's actually why we're wearing top hats and typically a tuxedo, which Jason has part of his tuxedo. I got my top hat on today, but we wear the top hat and tuxedo on Groundhog Day, as you can see back here behind us, to greet Phil as royalty, because that's what we consider him. He's royalty. These top hats, we actually, to tell you a little story, we had to buy some new ones a couple of years ago. Well, it happened to be the year and about the same time that Queen Elizabeth passed away. Well, our top hats come from England. They were having a funeral. There was a shortage on top hats because they all got bought up by the people attending her funeral. And we had to wait a couple months to get ours, which we might be the number one top hat buyer in the world. I don't know.
Yeah, they're not a popular item anymore. But
no, you only get one, so you got to protect it. Now it's we don't like to tell Phil, but this hat is made of beaver and rabbit hair, so it's a real top hat. They're pretty cool. They're a little bit heavy. They're sized perfectly for your head, so my hat would not fit Jason, and vice versa. His would probably come down over my ears to about here.
All the brains.
That's right. Yep. Here's a LeBron, I guess. So anyway, everyone in the Groundhog Club, there's 15 of us. Everyone has a job. My job is a pretty cool one. I get to be Punxsutawney Phil's handler. And the best part about that job is probably right here, where I get to get Phil out of his stump on Groundhog Day. You can see that over in this picture as well. I get him out for the crowds around the world and people attending on Groundhog Day to see. That's the coolest part of the job. The tough part of the job is that I take care of Phil all year round as well. So I feed him, I take him to his vet appointments and make sure he's safe and happy and healthy. But that's a fun job too. It is takes some time, but I do enjoy it. So Groundhog Day in Punxsutawney, what is actually happening? So Punxsutawney's in southwestern Pennsylvania. Gobbler's Knob. If you've seen them, here we go.
That's Pennsylvania. We're about right in the middle of the western side, about an hour and a half north of Pittsburgh. The next real big city would be New York City, which would be about 5 hours away on the other end of Pennsylvania.
Now you'll notice, everyone where you're from, you have little things about the way people act or talk or say things where you live. You just noticed, and Jason may not recognize what he just did, but in Pennsylvania, especially southwestern Pennsylvania, we measure distance in time. So that's why we live an hour and a half north of Pittsburgh. We have no idea how many miles that is. It's an hour and a half. So that's, if you're from PA, that's how you measure distance. So anyway, Gobbler's Knob is a rural kind of natural amphitheater. This is Gobbler's Knob right here. That is the top of Phil's stump where he lives on Groundhog Day. He doesn't live there year round. Year round, he lives in our local library in a zoo exhibit with his wife, Phyllis, and their children, Sonny and Shadow, who are about just coming up on a year old. They were born last year, the first baby groundhogs we've ever had born in captivity. But that's where he lives year-round. On Groundhog Day, he's up here about a mile away, mile outside of downtown Punxsutawney in this stump. And as you can see, the crowds gather. People come to Punxsutawney from around the world and gather to see Punxsutawney Phil. About 40,000 people will attend Groundhog Day. In
maybe
a town
more this year.
Yeah, maybe more.
With it being on a weekend.
In a town of 4,000 people. So it's pretty wild.
Tiny little town.
We probably have about 40 hotel rooms. So if you want to come to Punxsutawney on Groundhog Day, you better book it about a year in advance and be prepared to stay. Maybe you'll get lucky and stay in Punxsutawney. Maybe you'll get lucky and stay within a half an hour of Punxsutawney, or you might be as far away as Pittsburgh, which would be about an hour and a half. Yeah. But anyway, people are gathered on Gobbler's Knob. They're looking for Phil to come out, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, so I'm just going to give you all the details. They're looking to see whether or not Phil has seen his shadow. Now, if he sees his shadow, that means
6 more weeks of winter.
That's right. And if he doesn't see a shadow,
spring's right around the corner.
That's right. Now, I always use, I'm not very smart, so I like to have things to remind me of how it works. And so the way I remember that is I always say, Phil's afraid of his shadow. So if he sees his shadow, he's going to scurry back into his burrow and hibernate for 6 more weeks. But if he doesn't see a shadow, then he's got nothing to be afraid of, and he's ready for the dandelions and everything else to start popping up out of the snow to give him something to munch on. He's ready for spring. He's not going back to sleep. So that's how it works. Now, what we'll do, we're going to walk you guys through how it actually happens on Groundhog Day so that you understand, because you might have, hopefully you're not a naysayer yourself, but you might have a teacher. People get old, they lose the spark, they lose the enthusiasm for things like this. And what Punxsutawney Phil does is real. Punxsutawney Phil he has a track record. Jason, do you know how many times has Phil's prediction been wrong?
0.
That's right.
Never.
He's never been wrong. His prediction has been 100% correct 100% of the time. And we have been recording Phil's prediction in Punxsutawney since 1886. So this will be our 139th year. We call it a trek on Groundhog Day. Now, like I said, you've got naysayers. Maybe your parents say, "Oh yeah, it's they pull that out of a hat in a meeting before the prediction, and they just read it out to people." Well, we don't. We literally write 2 witty predictions, one for an early spring and one for 6 more weeks of winter. And let me just give you a little rundown of what happens on Groundhog Day, February 2nd, so that you can understand the way it all happens and the way it transpires. So February 1st and Groundhog Day, think of that like New Year's Eve. So the day before New Year's Day, the day before Groundhog Day, people are coming to Punxsutawney in droves. They're all hyped up. They're ready for the holiday. They have no idea what they're about to come witness, or this might be their first year, or maybe they are what we like to call faithful followers of Phil. Maybe they've been coming year after year. We're actually honoring a woman at our ceremony this year that has been coming for, I think it's 35 years.
I thought it was maybe 36 or 37.
36 or 37 years.
In a row.
She's never missed. She has traditions, just like a baseball player that, maybe never changes his underwear during the playoffs. Well, this woman walks to Groundhog Day every year. She's, for 37 years, walks the whole way to Gobbler's Knob. She stands in the same spot every year. And after the prediction, she waits until the entire crowd has cleared and walks up and gently asks for a picture with Phil. And she has a picture of herself with Phil from every year that she's ever attended Groundhog Day. So pretty neat. So people have these traditions, and everyone has an adventure to get here. Maybe they're like Beth and they walked from wherever she lives. Or maybe I have a friend that's working in Paris right now, and text messaged me last night and said, "Hey, my boss says we're coming to Groundhog Day. We're going to fly into New York City on the 1st at like 10 p.m. And then we have another flight to Punxsutawney. We'll be in the closest town with an airport. We have a little airport in Punxsutawney, but they're going to fly to Du Bois, Pennsylvania. They plan to arrive there about 5 o'clock. I said that's not early enough, so they're going to change that. But literally, they're leaving Paris to come to Groundhog Day. So people come from around the world. Everybody is making their personal trek to Groundhog Day. In the meantime, the 15 members of the inner circle, the guys in the top hats, as well as our staff, which we only have, I think, 3, but that's better than none. We have 3 staff members, and then everyone in town. I mean, if you're from Punxsutawney, like it or hate it, you're eating and breathing Groundhog Day, or you're going to Florida for the weekend. But it's a big deal in our town. So everybody's getting ready. People are traveling. They're trying to get to Punxsutawney. They're getting to Punxsutawney. News stations are sending crews. All the entertainment, because Groundhog Day happens at sunrise, but there's entertainment on Gobbler's Knob from 3 o'clock in the morning on. So everybody's getting ready, and the guys in the top hats and everybody that volunteers to help are working to prepare for the crowds and to get Phil out to make his prediction, which is really the main reason that we're there. Yeah. So these crowds gather, and the top hats are up, which this is really nice having this picture behind me. We are up here, back behind the crowd, there's a building. And we kind of gather up there and get everybody together. And at about 7 o'clock in the morning, maybe 10 till 7, the inner circle will walk down through the center of the crowd, right down through here. And we call that our trek. There's actually a fence there that you just can't tell, but there is a path through there. And we have walked that same path since 1886. And we walk down and we walk up on the stage, and we encircle Phil's stump, like you can see in this picture. And we were talking about this with some people earlier today. This is probably right before Phil's prediction. This was taken last year or the year before. But we put a red carpet on top of Phil's stump when he comes out, and it's not on there yet. So this is probably about 7 o'clock in the morning when this photo was taken. But we get up on stage, and like I said, everyone has a job in the inner circle. My job is Phil's handler. We have a president. He's the only president of a holiday, which is kind of a cool thing if you think about that. But we have a president of the Groundhog Club. Now, he actually has some special abilities that not every layperson in the world has. So the president of the Groundhog Club carries with him an ancient acacia wood cane, walking cane, made of acacia wood. It's been passed down from president to president. And that cane gives him the ability to interpret groundhogese. So I think if I move aside, you'll see that's our president, our current president. His name's Tom Dunkel. His name in the inner circle is the Shingle Shaker, and that's his cane. That's the old ancient cane. Now, Tom's dad was actually Phil's handler, my job, back in the 80s, and he was the president of the Groundhog Club, so he also had the ability to interpret groundhogese. He was the president in the early 90s, and at any rate, Tom will take that. He will talk to the crowd. He'll explain some of the things that I'm explaining in probably a lot less words. And he will then take his cane and he will lean down and he will knock on the doors of Phil's stump 3 times. And that's how he wakes Phil up. He will ask the crowd to help him. And the way that he will ask the crowd to help him wake up Phil is he'll ask them to start chanting, and they'll start chanting, Phil, 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 and the entire crowd will be chanting Phil. And at that point, then he will direct me to get down and get Phil out of the stump. So I'll reach down. Usually takes a minute because there's little doors there, and then I have it kind of packed with some hay and some bedding to keep Phil warm. Now the stump is heated, and he has a lot of like weather instruments in there. There's like a Doppler radar that we got in an Army surplus store, and there's a obviously a thermometer and barometer, all the older instruments, but also he has an iPad so you can get on to, some local weather apps that he likes to consult with, or sometimes I think they might consult with him. But anyway, he's in there, scheming on what his prediction will be and looking for what he might expect, maybe sunshine over his shoulder or maybe a cloudy day. But he's getting ready. So I get down there, get him dusted off and get him ready. And I will then reach down and pull him out for the entire crowd to see. I'll hold him up for the crowd like this. And then I usually hold him down like this a little bit for the news cameras because you can't see them. But around our feet at that stage are cameras and microphones, basically shoulder to shoulder. Because all the news channels and all the different, they all come into, they need to know what the prediction's going to be, right? So we do that. And then I turn around. I let the inner circle greet him. And I set him on that red carpet on top of the stump. Now, to that point, that Phil and Phil alone looks for his shadow. Whether or not we see one means nothing. We're only the messengers. So Phil will then tell the president in Groundhogese whether or not he's seen his shadow. The president will then direct the vice president of the Groundhog Club, this guy, Dan McGinley, we call him Moonshine, to read the proper scroll. Dan makes 2 of these really nifty proclamation scrolls with, like I said, a pretty witty proclamation on them. He'll direct Dan to read the proper scroll, spring or winter. Dan will read it to the crowd gathered at Gobbler's Knob and the masses tuned in throughout the world. And at that point, then everyone will know whether it's, time to wax your beach chairs or wax your runner sled. 6 more weeks or early spring. That's how it happens on Groundhog Day. So, the most importantly within that conversation is probably the fact that we are only the messengers. We just get Phil's message out to the world. But it is a lot of fun. Like I said, there's a lot of repeat customers. I would say the Groundhog Club or the Groundhog Day crowd is probably 50% people that have come year after year after year after year. They're faithful followers of Phil. And if you would get on YouTube or the internet and look year after year, you can start picking people out of the crowd because we wear these top hats, but it's cold out. So hats are kind of a popular thing and people tend to decorate themselves up sometimes. And you'll find the same people in the crowd. You can find them. But probably half are repeat customers and the other half is divided between people are still maybe trying to figure it out, and then what we call bucket listers. They're there for the first time, and they've just been thinking about it their whole life, or maybe they haven't, and their friend drug them to Gobbler's Knob, but they're here the first time, and they're trying to decide, what in the world did I get myself into, and why is it so fun? But it really truly is
fun.
Yeah, it's one of the interesting things with that crowd is, you're from Punxsutawney, this little town in western Pennsylvania, and you'll walk and you'll talk to people, and it just blows your mind. Every 3 people you'll say, where are you from? Germany or Australia or
Japan or Russia.
Yeah, and you'll say, oh, that's awesome. What do you're what else are you doing while you're in the United States? And they'll say, nothing. We came for Groundhog Day. That's what we're here for. That's it. It's just, it's humbling to realize the reach of Groundhog Day around the world. And we're just all, we tell people you're just lucky enough to be born somewhere that, it's the only holiday with a destination.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. If you are from Punxsutawney and you talk to anybody on the phone, the first thing, and they say, okay, what's your address? And you say, oh, it's blah, 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 Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. And they say, Punxsutawney? Is that the place where that was the groundhog? And, then you get into a conversation. Next thing you know, you're best friends, and you're telling them they can stay in your guest room on Groundhog Day. So that's kind of how it works for a Punxsutawney.
I can't think of any other towns, especially a town of 5,000 people in the world, that has the whole world turn their eyes to that town on a certain day of the year. So we take that as a very humbling and
high honor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we don't like to acknowledge it, but there are other places around the world that do celebrate Groundhog Day and have groundhog celebrations of their own. And we always say that, imitation is the best form of flattery. But you guys know as well as we do that there is only one true weather prognosticator. That's why it's a Groundhog Day and not Groundhog's Day. Now, I think probably at this point we do have a special guest with us that you guys probably would love to see. We actually have Punxsutawney Phil with us today, so I'd like to get him to show you Phil, and we'll talk about a little bit of the stuff that makes him unique and maybe a little bit magical compared to your everyday groundhog, but also some things that just make groundhogs cool that, people like me that take care of groundhogs for their side gig think are pretty neat. So hold on 1 second. I'll grab Phil.
Okay. While AJ's getting Phil, I want to read through some of the schools that signed up to view this video ahead of time. Now, I hope there's hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of schools and teachers and students out there who watch it, but these were a few. In fact, our furthest away school was the Avelino Diaz Elementary School in Miera, Spain. There's the 3rd and 4th grade classes there signed up to watch the video. So welcome from northern Spain there. And then
Trace and Quattro classes.
oh yes, Trace and Quattro. Yeah, see. Other school, and I decided for some reason to put this in alphabetical order by state. So if you're from Arkansas, Oaklawn STEM in Hot Springs, Arkansas, the K through 6th grades signed up to tune in. We have Rosedale North from Bakersfield, California, the 2nd grade class there. Ledesma Elementary School in San Jose, California, 6th grade. Charles Helmer's Elementary School in Santa Clarita, California. We have the Buffalo Trail Elementary in Aurora, Colorado, 3rd grade students. Actually, I was in Aurora, Colorado last summer. My family took a family trip to Colorado, and we spent a night in Aurora and loved it there. We had a really nice Italian restaurant we ate at, so love Aurora. We have the 2nd grade class from Birch Grove Primary School in Tolland, Connecticut. Welcome. We have the Mrs. Glover in the Soap Creek Elementary School from Marietta, Georgia, tuning in. We have Jen Parks from St. Francis School in Roswell, Georgia. We have a 4th grade class from Albert Cassens Elementary School in Glen Carbon, Illinois. We have Mrs. Fulton and the 1st grade students at Angola, Indiana, Carlin Park Elementary. Welcome. A couple more here, and we'll get Phil to you. About Wichita, Kansas, we have a preschool there signed up to join us. Oh, here's one that's been joining us for many years now. AJ and I have probably done this now 3 or 4 years, where we've tried to connect with schools, and one that's always been there. This is Colonel Barry Sanders from Richardsville Elementary in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I mean, how do you forget a name like Colonel Barry Sanders? I mean, so I know he's been here every year. A couple more here. Barsanti Elementary from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 1st grade. Welcome. And we have Heather Stevens from Eric Knowlton School in Berwick, Maine. Maine's a beautiful state. And we have Ashby Elementary from Ashby, Massachusetts. And how about one more? Elizabeth Reynolds from Gaylord Intermediate School in Gaylord, Michigan, 5th grade, also signed up. So we'll get to the rest of the list later. But for now, I bet you've been waiting, well, about 22 minutes for this guy to show up on screen. And there he is. Good old Punxsy Phil.
There he is, guys.
The one and only. This is it. There's not more than one, and he's the only one. So
yeah. So, probably the first question that we get about Punxsutawney Phil every time we go somewhere with him is, how old is he? And that's very important, because I said I'm going to tell you a little bit about the magic, and we'll talk about those things first. So we know that Phil predicts the weather. Only Phil predicts the weather. We know that he communicates in Groundhogese. And, I didn't tell you guys, but if you would walk into Punxsutawney and pick up that cane, it doesn't work for everyone. Like, I pick it up and it's a walking cane. If you picked it up and looked at Phil, and all of a sudden he was looking at you, and you like hear him say, "Hey buddy, how about a piece of corn on the cob?" Well, you would be the heir apparent to the presidency of the Groundhog Club. So be careful what you pick up when you're in Punxsutawney. You may end up staying for life. But Phil has been in our care since 1886.
Yes.
Now, the way it worked in Punxsutawney, and I always say, Phil, like, put your earmuffs on, okay? He's heard this a million times, but I still, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. In Punxsutawney in the late 1800s, there was a group of people. They would eventually become the Punxsutawney Groundhog Club. At that point, they didn't have a name yet, but they had an annual picnic in the fall. And at that picnic, they would hunt groundhogs, and that was what they ate for. That was the meal. So at that picnic, year after year, they'd be hunting groundhogs, and they'd have a big groundhog feast at their groundhog picnic. This is all true, and it's putting him to sleep. But this is all true. They would do this year after year. Well, one year, a particular animal presented himself from the thicket, and that was Punxsutawney Phil. They recognized he was unique, and from that point forward, Phil was the guest of honor at that picnic rather than the main course. So like I said, he came into our care at that point. That means we figure at least 138 years old. We don't know how old he was at that point when he came into their care, but he's been with us ever since. Now, the average groundhog in the wild lives maybe 5 to 10 years. Phil, like we said, is quite unique, and he's quite a bit older than the average groundhog. Now, that is because we still have that annual picnic. Like I said, we don't eat groundhog anymore. We have everyone gets a steak and maybe some corn on the cob, maybe some cheeseburgers. It's just a local picnic that we throw for Phil's faithful followers, local and at large. And you can come to Punxsutawney. It's in the fall in September, actually the weekend after Labor Day every year. And at that picnic, we bring Phil down to the stump and the crowd comes down. It's not quite as big as the crowd behind us here, but the crowd comes down and we administer Phil the elixir of life, or sometimes we call it Groundhog Punch. Now that's something kind of like the acacia wood cane. That recipe is passed down from groundhog handler to groundhog handler. And I'm the current mixologist for the Groundhog Punch. So I can't really share the recipe. It does have some unique things to Pennsylvania that I have to, scour the countryside to put together to make that punch. There's a little bit of ginseng root, which I have some helpers out in little town of Adrian that helped me get that. And then I have there's a tear from a Pennsylvania grouse. Jason lives out in the woods. He usually tracks that down. His kids are all quite adept to finding things like that, so they can get that, and a bunch of other stuff I really can't talk to you about, or that's what we say esoteric. But Phil gets at least one sip of that every fall. Now, with every sip, they say he gets 7 more years of longevity. So over the years, he's had quite a few sips. Some years he gets 1, sometimes he takes 5 or 7, but regardless, he's got a lot of years stacked up behind him. Now, something interesting about that, there was a guy up here a couple of days ago that I was talking to, works across the street, and he said, "Hey, do you know that back in the 90s, there was a parade in town, and Phil escaped from the handler's arms and was running across the street, and I actually saved him." I said, "No, I didn't know that." He said, "Yeah." He said they stopped. Phil has his own bus, the Philmobile, and that's what we take on parades. Well, he said the bus stopped and Phil was right under the back tires, and that's where I picked him up. And I said, "Man, that's interesting," because everyone always asks, well, like, how does that elixir work if Phil would get, say, hit by a car? Well, I don't know. Like, if the bus had kept going, would it just been like hitting a granite rock and just rolled right over top and Phil would have been fine? I don't know how it works, but all I do know is Phil is with us, and we intend that he will be around for quite a long time. And I think he does too.
Yeah.
But that, like I said, is one of the quite magic things of Phil, is his age and his ability to predict the weather. Now, just some things about groundhogs in general. And we're getting up here in time a little bit, so we don't want to keep you guys, I'm sure you got other things to do. Go to lunch, fact check us on Google. Groundhogs are pretty cool. They're indigenous to North America. As you go around the country or around the continent, they look a little different. It depends on where they live. They're colored a little bit differently. The ones in Western Pennsylvania are they look a lot like Phil. They can be a little bit more of a sandy brown or tending towards black, but they always have the speckled gray within their fur. Now, their fur is 2 layers thick. They have an outer guard hair, which is on top, and it's kind of smooth, maybe like a beagle dog, or it's smooth and straight. Now underneath, and I don't know if I can show you, you can kind of see underneath, he has a fluffy undercoat, cottony, like a bunny's tail. And so that undercoat keeps him warm, but the outer hair, they call it guard hair, keeps him clean and dry. And groundhogs do like to be clean. They preen like a cat. If they eat, or really anytime, Phil's constantly like cleaning his claws, cleaning his teeth, cleaning his whiskers, and he, like I said, he lives in our local library in a little zoo exhibit with his wife Phyllis and their children Sunny and Shadow. They'll actually clean each other too. They take care of each other pretty good. But that's his hair. Now you see he's got these little tiny ears. Now groundhogs live in a burrow underground in the wild. And they can fit through a hole. They actually dig their holes about the width of those ears. That's all the wider their hole is. And that's, big enough for them to get in, but small enough to keep most predators out. Now, his body looks a lot wider than that. His looks quite a bit wider, and you can see his little tail as I turn him around there. But they can actually shrink their body, squeeze their body to the width of their head. They're pretty squishy. I always say it's kind of like holding a gallon bag of water. It's kind of what they feel like. And you see, he kind of like smushes up on my hands, but they're pretty good size. Phil weighs about 11 pounds right now. He bulks up through the summer, and through the winter he loses a lot of weight because they hibernate very heavily. In the spectrum of hibernating animals, groundhogs are at the far end of deep hibernation. If you came across a hibernating groundhog, you would probably think he was dead. Their heart rate goes down to maybe 3 or 4 beats a minute, and their body temperature goes down to somewhere in the 50s. So they're cold, they're stiff, and you have to stare at them for a while before you even see their chest rise to be sure they're breathing. So he's not hibernating now, although it would be hibernation season. Phil's zoo is climate controlled, so he's pretty awake this time of year. He still tries to slip into it sometimes. A couple weeks ago, I had to go in and feed him a sugary banana to wake him up. But they don't really hibernate that hard in captivity, at least in our experience. So we talked about his hair. You maybe can see his teeth. He's got 4 big front teeth, like yeah,
2 on the top, 2 on the bottom.
2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and they overlap. Now, if you've tuned into us before, the handlers that I learned from taught me that there were 4 groundhog teeth, and we always said they have 4 teeth, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. And I've said that about 1 million times in my life. And this past year, we got a new member of our inner circle. His name's Jay Lundy. We call him Overcast. And he said, after he did a presentation with me, and afterward he said, they have more than 4 teeth, right? I said, no, they have 4 teeth. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years. Come on. And he said, no. He said, they have more. I read about it last night, so I'd know some things to talk about. And I was like, show me. So, he pulls it up on his phone. Of course, I never thought about, they have a bunch of molars apparently in the back of their mouth. I never made it that far. I didn't into Phil's mouth, so I didn't know that, but they do. They have 25 or so teeth. I don't do something like that. So, yeah. Learn something new every day.
That's right. Nothing wrong with that.
No. Now, groundhog's teeth are kind of cool because they never stop growing. So if you're in the business of, milking the tooth fairy for every dollar she's got, if you're a groundhog, you'd do pretty well. Because if you snap your tooth off, stick it under your pillow, they'd grow back in a couple of weeks and you can do it again. They're like a fingernail or your hair. They just keep growing and growing. So groundhogs have to wear their teeth down. They do that by chewing, grinding their teeth, chewing on stuff, anything. They chew on wood, they chew on rocks, anything they can chew on. You might walk up to something and pick it up with your hand to inspect it and see what it is. Groundhogs put it in their mouth. That's the first thing they do, and they chew on it. So they always have to be grinding their teeth down. They have big claws on their front paws as well as their back paws back here. It's hard to see, but he's got these back paws too. Their front paws have 4 toes and 4 claws. Their back paws have 5. And it's probably for balance that they have that 5th toe on the back, because they'll actually sit up on their haunches when they're eating, and that's to see if predators are coming or any danger to, and then they'll alert other groundhogs and scurry to their burrow, or maybe their handler's arms or something. But the front paws, they only have 4 toes. Now, when they sit up on their haunches to eat, they will actually hold food with their paws, and they're fairly good with their paws. They can manipulate things pretty well. They don't have that a 5th toe, but they do have a big pad that they kind of use like a thumb that they pinch things against. That's how they eat. They're vegetarians, herbivores, so they eat fruits, vegetables, no meat. other than handler's fingers. But Phil and I get along pretty well. He doesn't. I don't get pet too often.
Does he have anything to eat here with us?
I didn't bring anything for him to eat. His well, Jason, you know some of his favorites?
Oh yeah, he loves green vegetables, mostly kale, spinach, things like that. And in the wild, they eat a lot of dandelions or farmers' crops or people's gardens. But anything vegetable related. As far as treats go, he likes bananas, believe it or not, because bananas aren't something that's naturally available in this part of the world. But he likes the sweet stuff. Granola bars, even the crunchy oats and honey granola bars.
Cantaloupe, watermelon, strawberries.
Yeah. But mostly green vegetables. Corn on the cob. It's fun to watch him eat a piece of corn on the cob because he'll sit there in his paws and spin it. And that's really neat. So he's fun to watch.
Do you want to do another couple shout outs here? Because
probably,
I'm not sure how much time you all have, but I guess you're not stuck with us. You can turn us off anytime.
You can watch it later or skip parts if you need to. New Jersey was our biggest participant with 5 different schools. We have Holly Glen Elementary in Williamstown, New Jersey. We have Cedar Grove Elementary in Toms River, New Jersey. Park Avenue Elementary in Freehold, New Jersey. Forest Avenue School in Verona, New Jersey. And George Washington School in Wyckoff, New Jersey. So welcome our New Jersey fans. A couple from New York. We have Alfred Ox kindergarten class from New York, New York. We have St. Mary's School from Cortland, New York. And primary school in Woodside, New York, 3rd and 4th grades from there. And then we have one from Ohio, Lake Elementary in Mentor on the Lake, Ohio. The 4th grade class is joining us. Oregon, Willamette Connections Academy from Scio, Oregon. Hope I pronounced that right. Pennsylvania is represented. We have Caitlin Walker from Windber Elementary in Windber, PA. That's not too far from us. Mackenzie Schaefer, 1st grade, Claysville Elementary School in Claysville, PA. Kindergarten class from Schuylkill Valley Elementary in Leesport, PA. And Lidditz, PA. That's a favorite of mine too. We've been there many times. Reidenbaugh Elementary from Lidditz kindergarten class has joined us. Lidditz is famous for being the place they invented pretzels, hard pretzels.
I didn't know that.
In Lidditz. And 80% of the hard pretzels consumed or created in the world are made in Pennsylvania. We are the hard pretzel capital of the world.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah. Learn something every day. Phil seems to have some really long front claws there.
He's going to be getting a manicure here, maybe even this afternoon. So
okay, does he grind those down too? Or
he does when he's digging, but
not a lot of digging.
Not a lot of digging in his burrow. So once or twice a year, you got to clip them, and that's coming. So
yeah. Well, we're excited. Like I said, it's Wednesday here. But Sunday morning at 7:30 Eastern, so if you're in the West Coast, that would be 4:30 in the morning. You probably will catch it on TV after you wake up. So, but look on the internet. If you can't watch it live, look on the internet, look on TV. They do reruns all day long about what happened, and you'll see us up there with Phil, and you'll say, hey, I know those guys. I got to see them at school. So someday, hopefully, you'll come to Punxsutawney and visit us and see it live. It is a free event. There's no charge to attend, and we like to keep it that way. We like to keep it family friendly and fun and lighthearted, and we hope you'll come and visit at some point. And we're here year round. There's an endless stream of cars coming to Gobbler's Knob every day of the week, every hour of the day. People passing through Pennsylvania and decide to jump off the interstate and come visit us. So even if it's not Groundhog Day, if you're in the neighborhood, stop on by and see us.
Definitely. Yeah. We'll hope to see you on Groundhog Day. And thanks for being a believer wherever you are at. Happy Groundhog Day.
Happy Groundhog Day. I'm going to finish off with just a couple more here. I want to get through the list here. Gordon School from East Providence, Rhode Island. Sugar Creek Elementary from Fort Mill, South Carolina. Let's see. We have Winterpock Elementary from Chesterfield, Virginia. We have Garrison Elementary School from Stafford, Virginia. Freedom Hill Elementary from Vienna, Virginia. Kent Prairie Elementary from Arlington, Washington. And they wrote, we are so excited. We are huge Phil fanatics. Thank you for making this opportunity available to students throughout the country. Well, I appreciate that. Finally, we have two more here. Crow Hill Elementary from Bremerton, Washington. And we have Expression Prep Academy from Huntington, West Virginia. So thank you to those who signed up ahead of time. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and learned a few things. And like I said, hope to see you sometime in person.
Yeah, thank you guys. Once again, happy Groundhog Day.
Happy Groundhog Day.